Assalamu alaikum, Muscat. Ana ismi Jamil. Alan, thank you so much for having me in Muscat today. It's my first time in this beautiful country now for roughly 10 years. What I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about what's happening in financial markets. We have a lot of uncertainty right now with the new presidency in the United States, what impact this is having on different asset classes. Worldwide, we're concerned about a potential trade war, and I'm going to also introduce to you the GTC brand, which I represent, and you can actually find our brand in our booth just near the entrance of the main exhibition hall. But before I begin, because I'm going to be talking about investments, and all investments carry a degree of risk, I'm just going to read out to you our disclaimer. So, over-the-counter margin derivative contracts, including contracts for difference and spot foreign exchange, are complex instruments and come with a high risk of losing money rapidly due to leverage. You should consider whether you understand how these products work and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Independent professional advice is highly recommended before investing. This seminar serves as an educational purpose and will not include any financial recommendation or advice. Okay, guys, the content you're about to see is essentially my personal opinions on where different assets and global themes might be heading. But before I do that, I'm just going to introduce myself to you. So my name is Jamil. I am the Chief Analyst at GTC, and I have this amazing job where I get to travel around the world and do media interviews with leading broadcasters. However, back in the day, around the time of the global financial crisis, 2008, 2009, I was actually one of you. I was beginning to learn how to trade. I was interested in trading around the global financial crisis because there was so much volatility and interest in global economy and different market matters. And essentially, I am always more passionate and will always be more passionate about speaking to a live audience and providing investor education rather than some of the glitz and glamour that comes from appearing on live networks and developing the brand. So the brand that I represent is GTC, and investing in client education and essentially sharing knowledge, which is what I hope to do with you guys this afternoon, are Cornerstone's brand values. But I just literally came to Muscat last night. I was in Singapore last week for a live BBC interview where, of course, we were talking about President Trump and what impact that inauguration has had on financial markets so far. I would love to spend more time with you guys in Muscat, but actually I need to go back to Dubai at the end of this week, and I'm supposed to be going to South America just before Ramadan. Just an advance Ramadan Kareem to everybody. Okay, so some of the other initiatives that I'm doing as part of this brand is doing interviews and essentially moderating panels with different industry experts and financial personalities. One personality that I had the opportunity to interview at the end of last year was the legendary American investor and best-selling author, Mr. Jim Rogers. The brand that I represent is continuing to expand worldwide, and I'm just going to show you now a few different images of some of the activities that are taking place across different expos, taking place in other parts of the world, from Jordan to Thailand. Also got our head offices in Dubai. And at the end of last year, we actually hosted a gala dinner where more than 100 different partners traveled worldwide to Dubai to celebrate the success they had with trading with GTC over the course of 2024. This is just a snapshot of some of the many awards that our broker has won in recent times. And in terms of a bit more about GTC, of course, you're more than welcome to come to our booth. But I will just tell you and let you know that the brand is regulated across different entities worldwide, stretching from the United Arab Emirates, where our headquarters are. You also have the United Kingdom, the FCA, Australia, South Africa, Mauritius, and Vanuatu. If you want any more information about the brand, please feel free to join us at our booth. Okay, so let's now talk a little bit about financial market themes and what is happening around the world economy. And I don't think I would be the only one to put my hand up right now if I said that actually we're living in very uncertain times. We now have a president that's come back who's creating a lot of different levels of volatility. I always said in the run-up to the US presidential elections of 2024, firstly, I was in Hong Kong as early as 1 year ago, and I was very clear with my statement that I had no doubt at all that Donald Trump would return to the White House. This came from a lot of communications and conversations I had with different US companies and so forth. It was very clear to me that he would return. And I always said that Make America Great Again version 2 is going to be like Make America Great Again version 1, but on steroids. It's like a huge action movie, right? Version 1, 2016 to 2020, we had a lot of different dramas, we had a lot of different chapters, but I think we can say with some confidence that in this first month so far, this movie has jumped straight to the action. We have so many different threats about trade tariffs, about different economic policies, and that's creating a very uncertain global economic environment. And unfortunately or not, that uncertainty is set to continue. This is what we need to now prepare ourselves for over the next couple of years. So the question that I think many traders and investors are wondering right now is, are there actually any global assets that we can potentially trust during times of volatility and uncertainty? If we go back towards the weeks and months before the 2024 presidential elections, the now returning president was very clear that trade tariffs and tariffs are the most beautiful word in the dictionary. And as we've seen through the first couple of weeks of the presidency, we've seen trade tariffs and threats on so many different global economies and regions worldwide, whether we're looking at the likes of Mexico, Canada, Colombia, China, European Union's been threatened. In fact, if you look at the news this week about the taxes on steel imports, we could say that all economies worldwide are being threatened with tariffs and taxes, which is going to create a lot of uncertainty. As a result of this narrative of Make America Great Again version 2, and we're completely seeing this movie play out, we've seen the US dollar, the US currency, strengthening to its highest levels in more than 2 years. In fact, if you go back towards the bottom of our chart here in October, when roughly those preliminary opinion polls were starting to suggest that Trump would win or was in the lead against the then Democratic candidate Kamala Harris, we can see a substantial pickup in demand for the US currency, because this was an election where neither outcome was priced in. And that's why we're seeing a lot of choppiness, a lot of sensitivity across different assets in the weeks since the former president has been re-inaugurated. There's a first time for everything, right? That's the first time in history that's happened. So if we look at where the dollar was in the month before the US election, we're just going to look at this candlestick here. The dollar index was roughly just above 100. In the month since, and actually at the beginning of February, it stretched all the way towards just above 110. That's a significant move in global financial markets, specifically when it happened in over just a couple of months. But we can see that the surge, the strength in the US currency has certainly picked up since he won the US election, which would have been a move from just below 104 to, again, to our highs towards 110. If we're looking at the threats of Make America Great Again, and the threats of tariffs, economic policy, weaponization of the US dollar, what that might mean for diplomacy, specifically in this region and other regions in the world, where basically we're going to have threats at any given point. The thing is, we all know what this presidency might be about, but when it comes to investing, nobody knows when it's going to be threatened and what the threat's going to be. And that's why many traders now would put their hands up that they actually do not know with some confidence where different assets are going to be heading. That's because one of the threats has been trade tariffs. And after the initial outburst, the initial threats of trade tariffs, what we're actually seeing is that the new president is using this as a negotiation tool. For example, if we go towards the bottom headline here from the BBC, 2 weeks ago, all of a sudden, Colombia was threatened with trade tariffs as a result of their, let's say, hesitance to take some of their citizens back from the United States to Colombia. So out of nowhere, we had sudden tweets, we had a sudden statement from the White House, we will impose tariffs on this good, this good, this good, if you do not accept these flight repatriations. That was the threat. And it only lasted a couple of hours, because a couple of hours following that, Colombia accepted what the demands were of the United States. This time last week, it was Canada and Mexico that were threatened with tariffs if they did not strengthen patrols on certain borders. That threat lasted a couple of hours because just hours later, both Canada and Mexico agreed to strengthen basically what was called border controls, and those tariffs have now been delayed. So, what we can say with some improving confidence is that these threats of tariffs might not actually be a reality. Of course, we never say never. This is a very unpredictable administration. But the initial signs are from the first month that he's doing this to essentially bully other economies towards getting his way, which of course to a patriotic supporter base that is very proud of their country, proud to be supporting President Trump and so forth, that's exactly what he wants in order to say that he's delivered what he promised on the campaign as part of this Make America Great Again slogan. However, when it comes to the likes of US and China, where bilateral relations and economic relations have been strained for a number of years, and the threats that are now coming towards the European Union, which of course, unfortunately, also includes that conflict that's still taken out in Eastern Europe as well, who knows whether those economies are going to, let's say, back down or give in to the demands of the new president as easy or as fast as some of the other examples we see here. We don't know. Nobody knows. And that's why this particular theme is very sensitive to investors as much as it is to war politics and so forth, which I really didn't want to be able to talk about, but we have to monitor it because this is now the theme that's driving financial market sentiment. So, let's say that trade tariffs are being used as a negotiation tool. And again, if we look at the examples we've seen from Mexico, Colombia, and Canada in recent weeks, we can say that that has been the case, and investors are also aware of this. And since we had those examples, we've actually seen the US dollar fall from those 2.5-year highs, and it's actually starting to drop. Who knows how long that drop could continue? Because we don't know how these negotiations might play out. So for the standpoint of an investor who might be trading currencies, global markets, or different global assets, we now need to question whether this very unpredictable, very volatile, very unconventional way of international politics might actually be impacting financial markets, which then gives us a different asset to look at. And who in this room is interested in the price of gold, if I can just have a show of hands? Okay. What we have seen over the past couple of weeks is gold prices continue to hit new all-time highs. And one of the major themes that's playing out in financial market headlines right now appears to be potentially when, and no longer if, gold is going to reach 3,000 US dollars. Again, we never say never to anything in international finance. And although that's the headline, I would also point out, I remember when Bitcoin was supposed to hit 50,000, it never happened. Then eventually it was supposed to hit 100,000. Yes, that did eventually happen. But all assets can go up and go down in price. So right now, the headlines are very optimistic that gold will continue to hit new record highs, but we never say never to anything in international finance. It's possible that if we see more information about trade tariffs being used as a negotiation tool and so forth, that maybe investors will start taking profit on gold. In the same way, they're taking profit on the US dollar. But right now, the headlines are very optimistic. Gold hits new record highs, Trump tariffs threats, inflation fears are driving investors towards a safe haven. We also have central banks and different institutions that have never supported gold investments to the degree that they're invested in now. So, I want to just thank you all for your time. Thank you very much for having me in Muscat once again. I hope you've enjoyed the content. And it is, as an analyst, as uncertain for me to analyze financial markets as it is for anybody else now who's opened up their Twitter feed or their news feeds and so forth, because we don't know which direction this world might turn. And that's an environment, if you're potentially looking to start trading or start investing, just be aware of that. I will never and cannot provide investment advice. The only tips and guidance I might be able to provide from my 10 years plus industry career, actually it's coming towards 20 years now, is that if you are going to invest, and again, I will never push you towards an investment, this is an uncertain world. Never invest anything in your capital that you're potentially no longer willing to have, whether that's $500 or $1,000 or so forth. All investments carry a degree of risk, and we never say never in a very unpredictable world. Thank you once again, Muscat, shukran, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.